What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Boston Sports Summit. I am your host, Tim Barnett, and oh my gosh, did I not think that this week would get any better, right? You have the Patriots playing the AFC Championship game with a second-year quarterback, first-year head coach, and we're back. We're coming off of back-to-back 4-13 seasons, and then we win, which means the Patriots are Super Bowl bound, baby. That is right. We are going to Santa Clara, California to go and play for the most coveted trophy in professional football. But the story just got even better because just yesterday, news broke that Bill Belichick is not getting into the Hall of Fame. And I'm not saying that this is good news because I didn't like Bill or anything. I have a grudge. No. I'm saying it's great news for me because what a story, right? I'm always rooting for the story. Not kind of, sort of, but in all honesty, I don't understand how we can take the NFL. Actually, excuse me. I don't know how we can take the Pro Football Hall of Fame seriously anymore with the failure of the Pro Football Hall of Fame committee to not vote in Bill Belichick on his very first ballot. That is the biggest disgrace I think I've seen with Hall of Fames. And yeah, you get the Baseball Hall of Fame, which pisses people off every single year. Yet this, you don't vote in the most successful head coach in NFL history that orchestrated a 20-year dynasty. You don't vote him in on the first ballot? What are we doing? What are we doing? And you know what? That's where I'm going to start today because usually I save my thoughts for last, but this story, as much, and I'll get to the Patriots, I'll get to the Denver game, and as great as that was, this story is up here. I mean, this is just surreal what happened. You have a slam dunk, absolute, no question, Hall of Famer based on his credentials. Straight up. I don't know how anybody can say otherwise. And trust me, I've heard a few. Which drives me up a wall listening to these people drives me up a wall, right? Listening to these people twist and turn and say that, oh, he was nothing without Brady or he had Spygate or Deflategate, all that nonsense, right? So I don't understand how you can twist yourself into that line of thinking that Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, regardless of, or not even regardless, taking into account all the stuff that you want to call that was going on, right? So, frequent commenter, not dog, just kicking it off early here. Unbelievable. I've lost all respect for the Hall of Fame. Exactly. I don't know how you couldn't lose respect for the Hall of Fame, an institution that one Bill Belichick idolizes. Do you not remember him on the NFL 100 greatest players of all time, or not the 100 greatest players, the 100-year all-century team? Belichick was on every episode and could tell you about Don Hudson in 1950s and 60s all the way to Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, you name it. He knew everybody and broke down the film as if he just did it the night before, knowing full well he's had that in his memory bank forever, regardless. This is an absolute failure by the Hall of Fame committee. I don't know how many times I can say that. You know, one of the things that when you're a Hall of Fame voter, it is your job to vote in the most successful player, coach, and to some degree owner of all time, right? And for owner, obviously, you have to have influence on the league. You got to do a little bit more than just have a good win percentage, because at the end of the day, you just hired the head coach who then brought in all the players, blah, 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 blah. But that's your job, right? Your job is to pick the best of the best, not the most average, not the most above average, not the guy with, a couple good years, but then just flatlined the rest of his career. No. The Hall of Fame should be about putting in the best of the best off screen. That's how best these people are, right? So, when you come across a resume like Bill Belichick's, 6-time Super Bowl champion as a head coach, 8-time Super Bowl champion as a defensive coordinator, his script, his playbook for stopping Jim Kelly and the K-Gun, which, fun fact, was started by Bill Polian. We'll get to that in a little bit, but his playbook to stop that is already in the Hall of Fame in 1991. He is a 3-time Coach of the Year award winner. He has won 17 division titles. He has won 31 playoff games, most of any coach in history. I could go on and on and on, and I'll bring up his stats in a little bit, but how do you sit there and justify to yourself that I'm not going to vote him in his first year of eligibility? How can you do that? Because to me, that signals a failure of doing your job. And what happens to you if you fail to do your job? You get fired. You don't have a job anymore, which is what absolutely should happen. Now, why did these voters not vote in Bill Belichick? What was their rationale? And right now, all we could do is just is speculate, right? Is speculate what the rationale was. I mean, for the first part, these voters could very well have thought that, hey, you know what? I really like Elsie Greenwood. I really like Roger Craig. I really like Robert Kraft. And Bill Belichick, with his stats and attributes and everything else, don't worry, the rest of the guys will vote him in. I'm just going to be the lone dissenter and not vote him in. And the best part is I don't have to I don't have to tell anybody. That's not how the Pro Football Hall of Fame committee works. So it's perfect. Well, no, it's not, because that is a ridiculous line of thinking. To sit there and say that my 49 other brethren are going to vote in the most successful head coach in the greatest dynasty in NFL history, he helped orchestrate that. To sit there and say the 49 other brethren are going to vote him in, but I'm not, because all the other, I really like those guys. That's foolish. That's ridiculous. Another line of thinking is the fact that Bill Belichick in just last year, right before this season started, was hell-bent on trying to get a head coaching job in the NFL. Now, he never got the job. The closest he came was getting down to the final interview for Atlanta. For the final interview, and it didn't work out. And that's, I think that was 2 years ago, and that's when he went into television, all of that fun stuff. So now he's in North Carolina. He coached a year in Carolina. But are some of the voters thinking that, well, Belichick still wants a job in the NFL, so I don't want to vote him in because I don't think it's going to be good on the league to have a current Hall of Famer coaching on the sideline. And to that I say, what does that even matter? Who cares if Belichick is a current Hall of Famer and currently coaching on the sideline? Because at the end of the day, for the last 10 years, he's been called a future first ballot Hall of Famer. Almost every time he got announced on television, the future Hall of Famer Bill Belichick is coaching for the Patriots once again, leading them to a 12-4 season and a first-round bye. It always happens. I just watched a Rich Eisen video that he did, I think, 4 years ago, talking about Robert Kraft and his candidacy back then. And he called Bill Belichick a future first ballot Hall of Famer. Done. No question. And now we're stuck in this predicament. And these voters put it upon themselves to sit there and think, well, you do know that Belichick could still coach in the league, so I don't want to vote him in because of that. It's going to be a bad look. Why? Why is that a bad look? It's not. You're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. Not to mention the other aspect of that, which is Bill Belichick was an a-hole. I think we can all sit there and look at his press conferences and his disdain for the media, unless it was the right person, right people, then he would open up and you could actually see him. Wow, he actually isn't. He's actually a good guy. Once you get him talking about football, boom, see you later. He is off in his own little world, and it's fun. It's entertaining. But the rest of it, the stuff that you see with the interviews, we're on to Cincinnati. Well, Bill, Jimmy did a great we're on to Cincinnati. Are you going to sit Tom down? We're on to Cincinnati. No. You put it upon yourself to create a moral clause that you didn't like the guy because of his, kind of dickish personality that you like. No, I don't want him in because of that. Which, again, that's not your job. Again, you failed to do your job. That's 3 times. So, the 4th time, and the last one, is these guys are still holding Spygate and Deflategate over his heads, which we all know with Deflategate. Can I honestly sit there and say that Bill had absolutely no idea about the deflated footballs? As much as I want to say yes to that, Bill Belichick knows everything that is going on. Just another example, Devin McCourty talking about his first year in the league, playing corner, playing on this side of the field, going backward, defending where the lighthouse is. And Belichick was talking about how the wind was swirling, and Devin's looking at him like, seriously? How do you know this? And then all of a sudden, Devin comes down with an interception because of the wind in that general area. And from that point on, Devin said that he just drinks the Kool-Aid. Like, he bought in, and Belichick knows everything, right? So that's why a part of me doesn't necessarily believe that he didn't know. But with Deflategate, I'll give him the shadow of the doubt. Spygate, the dude is openly admitted, right? We all understand that he did it. Now, this idea that Belichick was filming practices, that he filmed the walkthrough and run through of the Rams in 2002 for Super Bowl 36 is false. ESPN has made a retraction. What is that word? A retractment when they talked about that. The Boston Herald, which was reported by John Tomasi, also made a massive retractment on that statement that Belichick filmed the practices for Super Bowl 36. Yet you have Mike Matz and Marshall Faulk still believing that. I think even Kurt Warner still holds a grudge. Clearly, Eric Dickerson holds a grudge because he was hoping the Rams would win and then we'd play the Rams again, this, that, and the other. So this is the problem, is that is verifiably false. If you watch that game, we were just super physical with the Rams in Super Bowl 36. They had no idea. They were a finesse team. They didn't understand what physicality was. Now, could you argue there was some holding, by today's standards? Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, the only reason why we didn't blow the Rams out of the water is because Willie McGinnis bear hugged Marshall Faulk, at the 2-yard line, and Tabucky Jones scoops up the fumble and runs it back 97. Otherwise, that game would have been a blowout, and it wouldn't have come down to Vinatieri's kick at the end. But that it is what it is. Otherwise, this idea with Spygate and Deflategate, it doesn't matter. Yes, you can say it does, but we've already paid our penance. We've already paid our dues with that. And it was also talked about how it's not that big of a deal. And why do I say that? Because it took, almost 20 years later for this to finally come out. But you have guys like Jimmy Johnson who tweeted out, Jimmy Johnson tweeting out, quote, "If they are using the excuse of Spygate, that's ridiculous. Many teams, including ourselves, tried it. Howard Mudd at Kansas City, who later coached for Bill Polian and Tony Dungy, gave us the idea. He was the best. We didn't get anything and stopped, but many teams gave it a try." You also have guys like Bill Cowher talking about it. Here's a brief snippet of him with Boomer Esiason on Boomer's radio show.
Say to you in regards to Spygate, they were doing nothing different than anybody else was doing. We don't have to worry about it in today's game, because today's game, we had the microphone. You could talk to the people on the field. Back then, you had the signal. We had wristbands. Okay, so the wristbands we would use, and Coach LeBeau was old school, and Coach LeBeau says, okay, I will do the wristbands. He did it for like one series. And then all of a sudden he got back and hey, guess what that is? It doesn't take long. That's man-free. Okay, that's single high.
So his signal's on the side.
So, and to go off that point, did they film the signals? Did they go down to spots that were not agreed upon and film the signals? Yes, they did. I'm not denying that. But this idea that it wasn't happening, I also just came across this beauty of Seth Wickersham when talking about his book about Spygate in 2007. He has this passage where Roger Goodell was reaching out to many coaches, and one of them being Mike Shanahan. And here's the brief passage in the book, excuse me. So in the book, it says, quote, Goodell called around the league, including to Mike Shanahan. "What's going on here?" Goodell said. I wish I had thought to videotape signals," Shanahan replied. "I'm disappointed in myself." Then it comes down to Roger, Shanahan continued. "First of all, people are always trying to steal signals. Peyton Manning is the best. If you don't change your signals, you're dead." Goodell understood, but thought that taping them illegally was different. The rule was the rule. Then Shanahan says, quote, "You can't say that Bill Belichick is a bad guy," Shanahan said. "Bill is just better at it than most are," end quote. He took it a step further, arguing that taping signals was worth the risk because there was no precedent for punishment. If nobody knew what the penalty was for crossing the line, why not cross the line, end quote. So that was just a brief little snippet from Seth Wickersham's book. And also, you go back to the Dynasty video, the documentary that was basically a big bashing of Bill Belichick, and he was and you get that piece where Robert Kraft asked Bill how much of this helped us out, how much of these videotaping the signals actually helped us out. And Belichick said 1% to 2% at most. And that's when Robert Kraft called him a schmuck. So, again, everything has been fleshed out. Everything has been done. When you look at Belichick's credentials, this is an absolute failure by the Hall of Fame committee. And, of course, two of the committee members were Bill Polian and Tony Dungy. Now, Tony Dungy has gone into hiding, and I'm not saying that he did or didn't vote for Bill. But in the in I have it right here. Oh, yeah. In the Seth Wickersham and Don Van Natta piece, you have it being talked about how Bill Polian is still holding a grudge over Bill Belichick to finally go after him and get this off, which also, when I first talked about this, when I saw this come out yesterday, my gut reaction was, I am not surprised, because this is exactly the stuff that they've been holding against Robert Kraft for the last 15 years. And yet, we're in the same predicament now. You know, the fact that Robert Kraft is not in the Hall of Fame is insane due to the fact that the committee members were holding it against him, you know, about Spygate and Deflategate, and said, nope, you're going to be punished for this. It doesn't matter that you put all this emphasis on Bill. It doesn't matter about your book. It doesn't matter all your posturing and all your, you know, help. It's nope, we're not letting you win. And I came on this show not too long ago and said it's a shame that Robert Kraft is not in, but it didn't bother me. Well, now with Bill, it does bother me. You know, the fact that both Robert and Bill are dealing with this is absolute nonsense. And in the meantime, the Hall voted in Jerry Jones, who has not been to the Super Bowl since the mid-90s. And the Patriots, meanwhile, have gone to 11 Super Bowls since the last time the Cowboys were in a Super Bowl. They also voted in Pat Bowlen, who won a couple Super Bowls with John Elway and the one with Peyton Manning. But was he there to help broker the peace like Robert Kraft was? And then they let Eddie DiBartolo Jr. get in, who had to sell his team because of the fraud that was going on with him. Okay, like how did those three guys get in? Now, if you want to say Jerry because of the TV deals and how he helped, you know, expand the NFL, okay, like it's excuse me for 1 second. All right. Are we good now? All right. So, if you want to say how Jerry Jones was expanding the NFL and bringing in all the TV revenue, having them compete and having them spend billions of dollars and, you know, creating the TV that we know now, okay, fine. I got it. Like, that makes sense to me. I can understand that even though they haven't won since the 90s. But with Robert Kraft, I mean, Robert Kraft has been massive to this league, saved football in Foxborough, in New England, basically. He brought in Bill Belichick when everyone was telling him not to. He helped broker the peace in 2011 by reaching out to Jeff Saturday to get the CBA done. Okay, and yet, why isn't he in the Hall? Oh, that's right, because of a bunch of nonsense, really. You know, I'm not saying that it didn't happen, at least with Spygate. Deflategate was hilariously laughable, but people were pissed, and the NFL, all the other owners, saw it as an opportunity to go after the Patriots once again. And that's why Deflategate became such a big thing. Now, to wrap all the way back, Bill Polian was the guy in the Seth Wickersham piece with Don Van Natta that was being reported where, I'm just trying to find it here. Okay. Here it is. Sorry. Second page. Multiple sources told ESPN that Spygate and Deflategate came up in deliberations among voters. A voter who spoke on the condition of anonymity said that Polian, an ardent Kraft supporter and former GM of the Bills and Colts and chief rival of the Patriots dynasty, especially in the early days, Polian told some voters he believed Belichick should, quote, wait a year before induction as penance for Spygate. A veteran Hall voter told ESPN on Tuesday, quote, the only explanation for the outcome was the cheating stuff. It really bothered some of the guys. Now, Bill Polian then goes on to tell SI that he categorically denied the allegations and that he 100% certain voted for Belichick. Well, in an interview with ESPN on Tuesday, Polian denied fellow voters that Belichick should serve a one-year penance for Spygate. He said he heard his fellow voters float that idea, but insisted he didn't agree or disagree with the proposal. Polian said he voted for Kraft and even spoke up on his behalf during deliberations, saying Kraft had no knowledge of the Spygate scheme. And this part's a good one. Polian added that he could not remember with 100% certainty if he voted for Belichick, saying he was 95% sure he voted for the coach and a player, most likely Greenwood. But end quote. So you tell one news source that 100% certain you voted for Belichick, but then the next day, more like 95% certain. And while that strikes me as liar, the other aspect of this, which I think is not being reported as much, is the fact that it's not that Polian denied that or didn't agree with the sentiment, right? That idea being floated around. It wasn't him, because it says here that Polian insisted he didn't agree or disagree with that proposal. Agree or disagree? That means you agreed with the proposal. Like, let's not play this game. There is a playbook, a defensive playbook in the Hall of Fame that Bill Belichick schemed up against his 1991 Buffalo Bills, the first time the Bills lost in the Super Bowl because of the kick going wide right. That was Bill Belichick's defensive scheme that stopped the K-gun. You don't think Bill Polian is a little butthurt over that? Of course he is. Not to mention the fact that in 2003, we were kicking Peyton Manning's ass up and down the field. We were stopping Marvin Harrison, making him look pedestrian. We were stopping Reggie Wayne. He was young, but it wasn't like he was doing much against us anyway. And so then in 2003, when We subsequently beat them. Bill Polian at the time was on the NFL's competition committee and extremely influential, and made defensive holding and illegal contact points of emphasis for the following season. So much so that the rule book, the illegal contact fouls skyrocketed from 79 in 2003 to 191 in 2004, the year we played Jacksonville in that Super Bowl 39 right there. Or not played Jacksonville, played in Jacksonville against Philly in Super Bowl 39. 191 illegal contact fouls. But the funny part is they came into Foxborough and they still lost. And Teddy Bruschi said it the best. Take a listen.
We play. That's what we do. We don't talk, we play. You come to Foxborough, it's going to be snowing, it's going to be cold. Come on in here. You want to say all you want? You want to change the rules? Change them. We still play and we win. That's what we do. All right.
That's what we do. Change the rules. We still are going to win. That's what is fantastic. And so, Bill Polian was obviously pissed off, and that's why he got the rules changed. So you don't think that Bill Polian to this day still doesn't hold a grudge, thinking that, oh, well, if we beat the Giants in 91, that we would have won multiple titles because our whole fortunes would have changed, or, the Patriots were getting away with murder, and that's why they kept beating Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Edgar James, Of course he did. And then with his comments, it just makes all the more sense in the world that he was the guy behind it. This is why I say to them all, bye-bye, see ya. Go to Florida, go to California, Arizona, wherever you retired at, and just stay there. You're done. You don't need your vote anymore. This is ridiculous that you left out this man who, by all accounts, should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. So much so, look at the comparisons between first ballot Hall of Fame coaches and Bill Belichick. As I mentioned earlier, Bill Belichick, 17 division titles, most all time. 31 playoff victories, most all time. 8 Super Bowl wins, 2 of which came as a defensive coordinator, but still, he had 6 as a head coach, 2 as a DC. And then you look at the first ballot Hall of Fame coaches, Tom Landry, Chuck Noll, and Don Shula. Tom Landry had 13 division titles. Chuck Noll had 9. Don Shula had 15. Playoff wins. Tom Landry had 22. Chuck Noll had 16. Don Shula had 19. And then you combine those 3 men, they combine for 8 total Super Bowls. So, ultimately, this is just absurd and sad and a horrendous look on the Pro Football Hall of Fame. In a time in a season that we should be enjoying and embracing the history of the game and the men who made this game, we can't. Because we're so wound up with Bill Belichick not getting in, having this sense of injustice done, that Bill Belichick is not in the Hall of Fame. It's honestly a tragedy. And it makes the Hall of Fame look weak. Not only do they look weak, but they look even weaker because they're all hiding behind anonymity. Now, there have been some voters who came out. I voted for Bill. I would love to see every single voter come out and say what they voted on. And they absolutely should. I also do not condone any harm to them or any harm to their property or, their job if they're currently working in print media or radio or Sirius, whatever. It's not that they should lose their jobs. they should lose their right to vote for the Hall of Fame. Simple as that. Because this isn't good. This doesn't reflect well on the Hall of Fame. The greatest coach in NFL history isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. I honestly don't know what else to say. I mean, I have a quote right here. Bill Belichick is well known for saying players win games, coaches lose games. Yeah, well, in that 20-year run, he didn't lose very many of them. I can tell you that much. So it is crazy. And one other thing too is a piece that I've done before, and I'm gonna do it again. It's gonna come out this weekend, so stay alert. Look on Boston Sports Summit YouTube. Where is it? Over there it is. Boston Sports Summit YouTube. You can also find it on Instagram and X. But I'm going to talk about how the Patriots and the dynasty have been robbed of a Hall of Fame presence, because right now there are only a handful, not even. There are only 3 true New England Patriots in the Hall of Fame right now. And actually, it might even be 2. You know, it's not right. Meanwhile, you have the 60s Packers with 12, and the other dynasties have at least more than 6. And I'm talking about true Hall of Famers. So as much as I love Randy Moss, I love Junior Seau when they played for us, they're not Hall of Famers. I'm sorry. They're not Patriot Hall of Famers. You know, I'm sorry. But check that out. That's going to be coming out in the next couple of days. So stay on the lookout for that. But, all right. So that was my piece. Woo, man. That'll take a lot out of you. talking about Bill Belichick and him not getting into the Hall of Fame. But now for another fun part is the fact that the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl after beating the Denver Broncos in a snowy second half blizzard by the score of 10-7. I thought this Denver team was good, but with Stidham, I didn't think they were that good. I thought the defense was overrated. That's why I thought the score was going to be 27-13. And the coaching, it's funny. Because I've heard this plenty of times, I'm sure you have too, that coaching is an art. It's not a science. And I don't think that could have been more perfectly shown by early in the second quarter, Denver marching down the field. They're inside our 20. It's 4th and 1. You have Jarrett Stidham as your backup, who's playing in the game because your starter got hurt. And you go for it on 4th and 1 with a bootleg rollout that 3, I think, of the interior blockers just didn't even block. So you had Corey Durden and Milton Williams right on top of Jarrett Stidham, forcing him to roll out to his right. He made a horrendous throw. Turnover on downs. And had Denver, after they called a timeout, they still sent out their offense. And had they sent out their kicker, that could have been a very different game. Going up 10-0 at that moment would have been, I think, massive. And I do hear, some of the fans, some of the media members saying that, this is the problem. You have analytics, and trust me, you know where I stand with analytics. I am the biggest anti-analytic guy in the world. I cannot stand the nerds. I hate the numbers because the numbers, They just tell you percentages. They don't tell you what could actually happen. And as I said earlier, coaching is an art. It's not a science. And yet, Sean Payton took it upon himself to, on the one hand, believe the numbers and believe the fact that, hey, if we get this and score a touchdown, the game is over, we're going to win. And in that moment, there was an ESPN graphic that said it was, I think, a 69% chance of getting that first down and getting it. And kicking the field goal was a 65% chance. Oh, that's what it was. 69% chance of winning if they go for it on fourth down, or 65% chance if they kick the field goal. What I feel like those numbers fail to comprehend is you had Jarrett Stidham, who hadn't started a game in for almost 2.5 years. It doesn't take that into account. The numbers don't know that a perennial backup is in at quarterback. It doesn't. And that's why the numbers were the numbers. And yet, they're so close together. Why are you even contemplating going for it? It's stupid. It's foolish. Just take the GD points. I mean, what are we doing? If they took the points, I might be sitting here pissed off that Belichick's not in the Hall of Fame and pissed off that we're not going to the Super Bowl and lost to Jarrett Stidham. So thank God that didn't happen, right? But to me, everyone talks about analytics. And again, you know where I stand. I want to say that it played a part, and I think it did. But I think going for it on 4th and 1 right there was more of a Sean Payton ego move. The fact that he had the opportunity to sit there and say, I just went 14-3 with Bo Nix. We got all the way to the AFC Championship game. And then I started Jarrett Stidham and won the AFC Championship and won the Super Bowl with a backup quarterback. I think that was running through his head. I think that Sean Payton was that big of an egotist to think that he could have it all on himself and sit there and say, I did this. This is on me. I got us here, and I was able, even with a backup quarterback, I got through. I got through to this. Because let's not forget, Sean Payton has always been an aggressive coach. Just go back to Super Bowl 44 when they started the second half with an surprise onside kick that caught Indy completely off guard. So I think that while numbers had something to do with going for it on 4th and 1, ultimately, I believe that that was Sean Payton and his ego. And the other thing I want to discuss is obviously the block kick. Now, Leonard Williams, called up from the practice squad, is able to push that left guard all the way, pretty much all the way back, gets his hand up, gets the tip on the ball, which saves the game because Denver's very next possession is when they throw the interception to Gonzalez. He comes down with it, and we run out the clock, ball game. After the game, Will Lutz noted how he believes they set up closer to the line of scrimmage than they usually do. Because it's usually around 7 to 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage that the placeholder will set up, and then the kicker goes and kicks it away, because that 7 to 8 yards is usually enough of a liftoff, a takeoff for the ball flight that'll get over all the defenders, sticking their hand up trying to block it. Will Lutz noted that he didn't believe it was the full 7 yards, 8 yards. And Phil Perry posted this on his Twitter account. And when you look, you can see, so those obviously bigger stripes are every 5 yards. So the ball's about inside that, 5th yard line, whatever, the 30, let's call it. And then Will Lutz's placeholder, Crawshaw there, is set up just beyond, let's call it the 35. Yeah, it actually is the 35 because it was a 46-yard kick. So that's pretty close. That's pretty close to 6.5 yards. Will Lutz, I don't think was wrong there. But the other fact of this too is when you watch that replay back and you watch it from the end zone camera facing the kicker, you will see Leonard Williams and our defensive tackle next to him basically shoot up both gaps, both the offense's left A gap and the offense's left B gap. The long snapper did zero to help out with the A gap there. He had nobody on his right. He had only the one guy on his left, but did nothing to help him out, which is why the push was able to be made to get even closer to the football on the kick, and that's how Leonard Williams got his hand on it. So all around, heck of a play, heck of an effort. A lot of the guys, were huge today. And now, to get into the game day grades, we got to talk about A's. I give it to the entire defense. But seriously, though, I mean, the defense was outstanding, and that's I give it to the whole defense outside of a couple people. But in all honesty, though, real A's. And again, this doesn't mean that the linebackers sucked or that certain people sucked. Just the standouts to me. Standouts to me for A's: Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, and Caleb Von Chason. Now, starting with Milton Williams. Milton Williams has 17 pressures, which is third most in the playoffs. And he's tied with Chason for the most quick pressures, which means they get into the backfield in under 2.5 seconds with 6. So both Milton Williams and Caleb Von Chason this postseason have the most quick pressures of any defensive lineman in the postseason. Then you fast forward to Christian Barmore, who blew up their all-pro right guard and made him look pedestrian by, and then getting after Jarrett Stidham and getting a massive sack in this game. Caleb Von Chason has 18 playoff pressures, second most in the playoffs. Jared Verse of the Rams is the only one who's got more. And guess what? The Rams aren't playing anymore. So my biggest fear going into this game last Sunday was our defensive line versus their offensive line. Because we talked about how the Chargers had the worst offensive line in the league. We talked about how the Texans did not have a very good offensive line, on top of the fact that Trent Brown was out. And then CJ Stroud just went batty during that game. But then, so now you're going up against, arguably, and according to PFF, the number one offensive line in the league. And they made him look pedestrian. Christian Barmore blew up the all-pro right guard. Milton Williams was getting into the backfield like it was nothing. Caleb Von Chason, the former first-round pick in 2020, again, Second in playoff pressures is getting around the edge, is getting around Garrett Bowles. Garrett Bowles, I thought you were good, dude. The center, he was one of their best. He's one of the best centers in the league. He was a no-show. It amazed me, and I don't know if it was the weather. I don't believe it was. But ultimately, we just owned their offensive line. So I'm looking at this next game coming up, thinking to myself, well, we might be able to get Sam Darnold to see ghosts again. but I'm saving that. I'm saving our preview for next week's show, because I'm going to try to get this big show together. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, A's, our defensive line. Studs. Now going to B. I gave B's to Christian Gonzalez, Kyrus Tonga, our offensive line, and Ramondre Stevenson. Now, for Christian Gonzalez, obviously, the 52-yard bomb to Marvin Mims was not good. After watching that play a couple of times, I do believe that Gonzalez believed he had help over the top. And the fact that Hawkins was out to lunch just goes to show that that's why that play was given up. And kudos to Gonzalez for not giving up. Now, he, I think, should have been a little bit more alert. They were communicating before that snap, but it fell by the wayside. So, but he obviously made up for it, because almost every time LSU got targeted, he was right there blanketing whoever he had, Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and then, of course, coming up with that game-clinching interception. What more could you want? Also, Kyrus Tonga blew up R.J. Harvey on the Broncos' final drive for a loss of 2 before that blocked field goal attempt. So if you remember, at the start of that play, Kyrus Tonga on Denver's right side shoved the guy 3 yards back just to take down R.J. Harvey for a 3-yard loss. And then Stidham on 3rd and 12 at that point ran for a gain of 6 or 7. But that gain of 6 or 7 could have been 10 based on where the spot of the line was. So had he not blown up that play to start off, to have them at that much of a deficit, Stidham's run could have either been 1, a first down, or 2, it would have put Will Lutz closer to the goalpost than where he was. And maybe then they would have set up right. Again, speculation, but hey, Kyrus Tonga, massive play right there. Our offensive line. I give our offensive line a B, because not for nothing, I thought they did a pretty good job. Nick Bonito had nothing. Their best pass rusher, 0, nada, zilch, all across the board. And so I thought they did a good job there. And listen, Drake Maye getting sacked 5 times, I thought was more on him. He was the one moving. I thought there were a couple times he had clean pockets, and the clock went off of his head, and the rest is history. I do believe that also some of his sacks were due in large part to his fumble issues the prior 2 games. I'm listening to Bob Sosi and Scott Zolak on 98.5, and the amount of times May got sacked, and then Scott Zolak would chime in to say that's where you got to throw the ball away. Well, I think there were a couple times in the last few games where he tried to throw the ball away and it just turned it over. And while I don't disagree with Zolak, I also looked at it from the perspective, I think Drake Maye really tried to hold on to the ball. Didn't want to let it go, and I'll get to him in just a minute. But the last one, so overall, I thought the offensive line was good. And then Ramondre Stevenson. Now, you look at his stats, you're going to think he sucked. 25 carries, 71 yards, 2.8 yards per carry. I mean, that's just an absolute horrendous day for any running back. No touchdowns, but he had no fumbles, number one. And number two, he was instrumental in that 9.5-minute drive to open up the second half of the game, to march down the field and get that go-ahead field goal. So I think ultimately Ramondre Stevenson gets a B from me, especially 2 because he didn't fumble the football. So now moving on to C's. Now this is interesting because I got Hunter Henry as more of a C, and I got Drake Maye as more of a C-. Now with Hunter Henry, he obviously had that bad drop across the middle, would have given them a first down. I thought his blocking was pretty decent on Sunday, and overall 2 catches, 12 yards. It was hard. It was hard to move the ball. Drake Maye was hard to move the ball with. So yeah, it's overall fine, but then obviously Drake Maye. Drake Maye, like I said, I give a C-. 10 for 21, 86 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, rushed 10 times, 65 yards, and 1 touchdown. So he had almost as many rush yards as he did pass yards, but the 0 interceptions, huge. The 0 fumbles, huge. In this game, that's what it came down to. In this game, it came down to the turnovers and the lack thereof for the Patriots. So I think that was really the reason why Drake Maye took all those sacks, and I think was very sheepish with the ball. Outside, and I think part of it too is that very first throw of his, where he threw it into triple coverage and nearly got it picked off, let alone for a pick 6. So that, to me, I think he was scared. I think he was scared to do that, to put the ball, and that's why I think he short-armed a couple of those deep in cuts. Now, and yeah, Drake, and like I mentioned, Drake Maye ran for 65 yards and a touchdown. And not Doug, Drake Maye ran in for a touchdown. Exactly. Frequent commented, not Sports Mom. Do you think all ballot votes, going back to the previous conversation, do you think all ballot votes should be public? Absolutely. The baseball writers do it. Why can't the Hall of Fame Pro Football Committee do it? It's crazy. But so I think that's part of the reason why he was shorting some of these balls. And now, too, we find out that, is Drake Maye injured? You know, you have this former sports doctor who used to work for the Chargers and has had, a couple malpractice suits filed against him. Just saying. But, he's alleging now that Drake Maye hurt his shoulder. And there were a couple things where you could see him kind of, doing one of these, kind of feeling it out. A lot of people are pointing to after during the trophy ceremony, Drake Maye is holding the trophy in his left hand, shifts it over to his right, immediately goes back to his left. But you also see him run away from Jim Nantz, and the trophy's in his right hand the entire time. He's running away from Nantz. So, listen, is he dealing with something? Yeah, I think he is. But I think it just comes with the territory. It's been 20 weeks of football, practicing, live games, getting hit. He was definitely up there as one of the more hit quarterbacks in the league this year. So, I mean, am I surprised? No, he was officially listed on the injury report today as limited participant. And as it was described by Mike Reese on the midday show on Beadle and Zoe earlier today. If Drake Maye did all his usual reps except for one, that means he's limited. He's not a full participant. So, again, it's not like they were running through the gambit today, but, it's an interesting conversation to have. I agree with Greg Bedard and several other writers where, as it stands right now, I am not fully bought into it. Is there something to be said? Could some of those throws, like that one he shorted to Booty across the middle, even though he had him wide open, could that have been because of his shoulder? Yeah, maybe. Maybe this was something that he was dealing with. Maybe something he's been dealing with. And the training staff knows it. And that's why they're not checking him out, because they know. But it's something definitely to monitor. As it stands right now, I'm kind of paying attention, but I'm not. It's because I need to see what's going to happen. So hopefully it's because it's been 20 weeks, but I also hope not, because that means he's sore. He's 23. We need him at 100% for this Super Bowl. He needs to go back to being 72% completion percentage Drake Maye if we have any chance of winning this game on next Sunday, a week from Sunday. So that's why, to me, Drake Maye is a C-. I think that he had some throws available to him. He didn't hit them. And his saving grace, which is why he's not a D or an F, is because of his use of the legs. His naked bootleg out to seal the game, phenomenal. Great job. And, yeah, I love that Drake Maye is our quarterback. And now going on to the final two grades, starting with D. Got Andy Borregales, and then F, got Bryce Behringer. So with those two guys, let's be honest. Andy Borregales, 1 for 3, made a chip shotter, totally chunked his 63-yarder, though it looked like it absolutely had the distance to make it. It just, you could tell once the ball got in the air, you're like, that's got no shot. But Drake Maye was huge by setting him up for that opportunity. And I think Borregales just looked at it and is like, I have to give this everything I got, or else, I'm not going to make it. And he gave it everything he got, but because he did that, he overkicked it. And that's why he missed. And not for nothing, too, he missed a 46-yarder. I understand you're from Miami. I understand this is brand new to you. This inclement weather is brand new to you. But if you're going to be a kicker in Foxborough, if you're going to be a kicker to, for us, you got to learn to kick in that type of weather conditions. And I understand it's hard. I'm not trying to sit there and, Monday morning quarterback and say, oh, you should have made it. It's that. I could do that. I'm not doing that at all. But I'm saying if you want to be a successful kicker in this league, those are the types of kicks. Those are the moments that you got to hit. I don't put a lot on him with the 63-yarder because it would have been a career high for his entire career, his college and all of that. But, that 46-yarder that he missed, should have had it. But, again, comment down below if you agree or not. Otherwise, Bryce Behringer, F, 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 F. He had 8 total punts. Only one of them landed inside the 20, and he nearly cost the Patriots the game with that 26-yard punt, which ended up being the blocked field goal attempt by Denver. And then the follow-up punt was 33 yards. You just want to sit there and go, Bryce, what are you doing? How many times have you punted? This shouldn't have been new. The weather, fine. But it's the same motion. It's the same thing. You keep doing the same action over and over and over again every single day that you're on the practice field. Every single time that you're in a game. I mean, Denver's punter was phenomenal. Out of his 6 punts, 3 of them landed inside the 20 and coffin corner us. He flipped the field. Whereas Bryce only was able to do that once. And that, to me, is kind of where the issue lies. That if we need a big punt in this game to flip the field, I hope he can make it and that it doesn't go off the side of his foot. Because ultimately, I'd love for us to score on every drive and not even have to use Bryce, in the Super Bowl. But if we do, he better flip the field and pin Seattle inside their 5 to make up for the fact that one of his 8 total punts landed inside the 20. But ultimately, the Patriots are back in the Super Bowl and are running away with it. Most Super Bowl appearances in NFL history, the Patriots are at 12. The Broncos, Niners, Cowboys, Steelers, all at 8. It is a +4 for the Patriots. And the funniest part is, outside of one, it has all been done in my lifetime. I was alive, but I didn't watch the 96 one. Too young. But my lifetime, we have been to 11 Super Bowls, this marking the 11th. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. I can't imagine what it's like to be a Bills fan. You got Josh Allen. You got your quarterback, your first real quarterback since Jim Kelly. You didn't have Burrow. You didn't have Jackson. You didn't have Mahomes in the playoffs. And you lost. You didn't even make it to the AFC Championship game. Being a Jets fan, you drafted Sam Darnold. He saw ghosts while playing the Patriots in a Jet uniform. And now he's going to the Super Bowl to play the Pats. Like, as a Jet fan, who the hell do you root for? Like, it's crazy. The Titans fans. Amy Adams-Strunk fired Mike Vrabel because she got upset about how Mike Vrabel gushed over the Patriots because he remembered how great it was to be a Patriot. And yet, they fired him. He doesn't get hired. He works in Cleveland. And then we let go of Drake Maye and bring him in. And now we get a first year head coach with Mike Vrabel with the Patriots. A second year quarterback who is very close to being an MVP winner. I don't think he's going to win it. But in my opinion, he should have won it. I would have voted for him. And the acquisitions that we made in the offseason, I mean, like I said, I predicted this team to win 12 games in June. I technically had them for 13, but then I was like, well, let me just have the Bills sweep us because there's no way we're going to go 13-4, right? Because I initially had us beating Buffalo at Gillette. But then I was like, it might be way too early. And so I took one win away. And then, so I had them at 12-5. We went 14-3. We're playing in the freaking Super Bowl, man. Does it get any better than that? One final thing I do want to say. Can we all agree that this trophy sucks and that this trophy is elite and they need to bring those old AFC, NFC trophies back? Can we just agree to that, please? Because the little ones, the one that Belichick is like, get this out of my face. I agree. It's a terrible looking trophy. Sometimes modern does not mean better. And that's one of those situations. So, thank you for tuning in. Tell me what you think down below. Belichick's Hall of Fame, Patriots are back in the Super Bowl, and the conference championship trophies. Can we just go back to the old ones with the wooden bottoms, please? Comment down below what you think. I'm on Instagram, Boston Sports Summit, on X, Boss Sports Summit, and Instagram, YouTube, Boston Sports Summit. Also, don't forget to check out the Grid Network. Bunch of great content creators, guys talking sports. We got a whole gambit of sports on the Grid Network, so check it out if you haven't already. So thank you so much. And for the Boston Sports Summit, I am your host, Tim Barnard, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your week. God bless, and good night. Thank you very much.